Welcome, students of class 7th of CST Dalhousie. Today we will discuss the chapter number 1 of history, our past. The name of the topic is Tracing Changes Through a Thousand Years. Our table of contents will be Introduction, New and Old Terminologies, Historian and their sources, New social and political groups, region and empire, case study, old and new religions, thinking about time and historical periods, important terms. Now look at this map. Take the look of this map. It's a map drawn by Al Idrisi showing the Indian subcontinent. You can take the look of it. Then this is another map. It's a map drawn by a French cartographer showing the Indian subcontinent. As you have taken the look over these two maps, now let us talk about the map number 1. Map number 1 was made in 11,054 CE by the Arab geographer Al Idrisi. The section reproduced here is a detail of an Indian subcontinent from his larger map of the world. Map number 2 was made in the 1720 by the French cartographer. The two maps are quite different even though they are of the same area. In Al Idrisi's map, South India is where we would like to find North India, and Sri Lanka is the island at the top. Place names are marked in Arabic, and there are some well-known names like Kannauj in Uttar Pradesh. Map number 2 was made nearly 600 years after map number 1, during which time information about the subcontinent had changed considerably. This map seems more familiar to us, and the coastal areas in particular are surprisingly detailed. This map was used by European sailors and merchants on their voyages. Equally important is the fact that the science of cartography differed in the two periods. When historians read documents, maps, and texts from the past, they have to be sensitive to the different historical backgrounds, the context in the which information about the past was produced. New and old terminologies. In the context in which information is produced changes with time. What about language and meanings? Historical records exist in a variety of languages which have changed considerably over the years. Medieval Persian, for example, is different from modern Persian. The difference is not just with regard to grammar and vocabulary. The meanings of words also change over the time. Take the term Hindustan, for example. The areas included in this term shifted with the extent of the Sultanate, but the term never included South India. But contrast, in the early 16th century, Babur used Hindustan to describe the geography, the fauna, and the culture of the inhabitants of the subcontinent. As well as we will see later, this was somewhat similar to the way the 14th century poet Amir Khusru used the word Hind. While the idea of a geographical and cultural entity like India did exist, the term Hindustan did not carry the political and national meanings which we associate with it today. Historians today have to be careful about the terms they use because they meant different things in the past. Take, for example, a simple term like foreigner. It is used today to mean someone who is not an Indian. In the medieval period, a foreigner was any stranger who appeared, say, in a given village, someone who was not a part of that society or culture. A city dweller, therefore, might have regarded a forest dweller as a foreigner, but two peasants live in same village were not foreigners to each other even though they may have had different religious or caste background. Historians and sources. Historians use different types of sources to learn about the past depending upon the period of their study and the nature of their investigation. We will read about the following 1000 years from roughly 700 to 1750 AD. You will notice some continuity in the sources used by historians for the study of this period. They still rely on coins, inscriptions, architecture, and textual records for information. But there is also a considerable discontinuity. The number and variety of textual records increased dramatically during this period. Through this period, paper gradually became cheaper and more widely available. Manuscripts were collected by wealthy people, rulers, monasteries, and temples. They were placed in libraries and archives. These manuscripts and documents provide a lot of detailed information to historians, but they are also difficult to use. There was no printing press in those days, so scribes copied manuscripts by hand. These small differences grew over centuries of copying until manuscripts of the same text became substantially different from one another. This is a serious problem because we rarely find the original manuscript of the author today. We are totally dependent upon the copies made by later scribes. As a result, historians have to read different manuscripts, versions of the same text, to guess what the author had originally written. On the occasion, authors revised their chronicles at different times. The 14th century chronicler Zaiduddin Barani wrote his chronicle first in 1356 AD and another version 2 years later. The two differ from each other, but historians did not know about the existence of the first version until the 1960. It remained lost in the large library collections. New social and political groups. A study of 1000 years between a huge challenge to historians because of the scale and variety of developments that occurred over the period. At different moments in this period, new technologies made their appearance, like the Persian wheel in irrigation, the spinning wheel in weaving, and firearms in combat. New foods and beverages arrived in the subcontinent, like potatoes, corn, chilies, tea, and coffee. This was also a period of great mobility. Groups of the people travel long distances in search of opportunity. The subcontinent held immense wealth and the possibilities for people to carve a future. Other groups of the people, such as the Marathas, Sikhs, Jats, Homs, and Kayasthas, also used the opportunities of the age to become politically important. Throughout this period, there was a gradual clearing of the forests and the extension of agriculture, a change faster and more complete in some areas than in others. Changes in their habitat forced many forest dwellers to migrate. Others started tilling the land and became peasants. These new peasant groups gradually began to be influenced by regional markets, chieftains, priests, monasteries, and temples. They became part of large, complex societies and they are required to pay tax and other offer goods and services to local lords. As a result, significant economic and social differences emerged amongst peasants as the society became more differentiated. People were grouped into jatis or subcastes and ranked on the basis of their backgrounds and their occupations. Jatis framed their own rules and regulations to manage the conduct of their members. Region and empire. Large states like those of Cholas, Tughlaqs, or Mughals encompassed many regions. A Sanskrit Prashasti praising the Delhi Sultan Ghayasuddin Balban 1266 to 1287 explained that he was the ruler of the vast empire that stretched from Bengal, Gauda in the east to Ghazni, Gujana in Afghanistan in the west and included all of the South India Dravida. People of the different regions, Gauda, Andhra, Kerala, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Gujarat apparently fled before his armies. Occasionally, dynasties like the Cholas, Khiljis, Tughlaqs, and Mughals were able to build an empire that was pan-regional, spanning diverse regions. Not all these empires were equally stable or successful. When the Mughal Empire declined in the 18th century, it led to the re-emergence of regional states. But years of imperial pan-regional rule had altered the character of the regions across most of the subcontinent. The regions were left with the legacies of the big and small states that had ruled over them. This was apparent in the emergence of many distinct and shared traditions in the realms of governance, the management of the economy, elite cultures, and languages. Now, this is a map showing the location of the small kingdoms during the medieval India. Case study. In 1318 AD, the poet Amir Khusro noted that there was a different language in every region of this land. Sindhi, Lahori, Kashmiri, Devar Samriddhi in southern Karnataka, Telangani in Andhra Pradesh, Gojri in Gujarat, Mabari in Tamil Nadu, Gauri in Bengal, Avdi in East Uttar Pradesh, and Hindavi in area around Delhi. Amir Khusro went on to explain that in contrast to these languages, there was Sanskrit which did not belong to any region. It was an old language and common people do not know it, only the Brahmanas do. Now, same languages are being shown in the table form. Actually, there were significant change in the spoken languages in different regions over the time. There is the first column is region, second column is language at the time of Amir Khusro, and third column shows the present day language. In a region in Sindh, At the time of Amir Khusro, Sindhi was spoken, and at present day it is Punjabi plus Urdu. Similarly, Lahori was spoken, and today it is Punjabi plus Urdu. Then in Kashmir region, language at the time of Amir Khusro, Kashmiri was spoken, and today it is again known as Kashmiri. In South Karnataka, Devar Samruddhi language was spoken. Nowadays it is known as Kannada. In Andhra Pradesh, Telangani language was spoken at the time of Amir Khusro, and it is present day it is Telugu. Now in Gujarat, it was Gujarati, and today again it is Gujarati. In Tamil Nadu, it was Mabar, and today it is Tamil. In Bengal, at the time of Amir Khusro, it was Gauri, and nowadays it is known as Bengali. In eastern UP, it was Awadhi, what was spoken at the time of Amir Khusro, and now it is known as Lucknowi. In Delhi, Hindvi was spoken at the time of Amir Khusro, and nowadays it is referred as Hindi. Now, old and new religions. The 1,000 years of the history that we are exploring witnessed major developments in the religious traditions. People's belief in the divine was sometimes deeply personal, but more usually it was collective. Collective belief in the supernatural agency, religion, was often closely connected with the social and economic organization of local communities. As the social worlds of these groups altered too, so too did their beliefs. It was during this period that important changes occurred in what we call Hinduism today. These included the worship of new deities, the construction of temples by royalty, and the growing importance of Brahmanas, the priests, as dominant groups in society. This was also the period when new religions appeared in the subcontinent. Merchants and migrants first brought the teachings of the Holy Quran to India in the 7th century. Muslims regarded the Quran as their holy book and accepted the sovereignty of the one God, Allah. Those love, mercy, and bounty embrace all those who believe in Him without regard to social background. Many rulers were patrons of Islam, and the ulama, learned theologians, and jurists, and like Hinduism, Islam was interpreted in a variety of ways by its followers. There were the Shia Muslims who believed that the Prophet Muhammad, son-in-law Ali, was the legitimate leader of the Muslim community, and the Sunni Muslims who accepted the authority of the early leaders, Khalifas of the community and succeeding Khalifas. Thinking about the time and the historical periods. Historians do not see time just as a passing of the hours, days or years, as a clock or a calendar. Time also reflects changes in social and economic organization, in the persistence and transformation of ideas and beliefs. The study of time is made somewhat easier by dividing the past into large segments, periods that possess shared characteristics. In the middle of the 19th century, British historians divide the history of India into three periods: Hindu, Muslim, and British. This division was based on the idea that the religion of rulers was the only important historical change, and that there were no other significant developments in the economy, society, or culture. Such a division also ignored the rich diversity of subcontinent. These 1,000 years of Indian history witnessed considerable change. After all, the 16th and 18th centuries were quite different from the 8th or 11th. Therefore, describing the entire period as one historical unit is not without its problems. Moreover, the medieval period is often contrasted with the modern period. Modernity carries with it a sense of material progress and intellectual advancement. During these 1,000 years, the societies of the subcontinent were transformed often, and economies in several regions reached a level of prosperity that attracted the interest of European trading companies. Now, this was all about this chapter. Now, I'll be telling you about the key terms or important terms what has been used in this chapter. First of all, it was a cartographer, a person who makes maps. Archive, a place where documents and manuscripts are stored. Today, all national and state governments have archives where they keep all their old official records and transcriptions. Another term is habitats. It refers to the environment of a region and the social and economic lifestyle of its residents. Patron means an influential, wealthy individual who supports another person, an artist, a craftsperson, a learned man, or a noble. Now, let me talk about the homework part of it, homework or assignment. So, first question is, what is considered a foreigner in the past? A foreigner in the past a foreigner in the past was known as in the medieval periods, foreigner was an stranger who was not a part of that society or culture. For example, a forest dweller was a foreigner to a city dweller. But two peasants living in the same village were not foreigners to each other, even though they may have had different religions or the caste background. But today, someone who doesn't belong to India, who has come from other country, is considered as foreigner. Now, another question is there, what were some of the major religious developments during the medieval period? Some of the major religious developments during this period were as follows. In Hinduism, new deities were worshipped and temples were constructed by royalty. The Brahmanas, the priests, dominated the other social classes. The new dynamic relationship got developed among Brahmanas and their patrons. New rulers searching for prestige. The idea of bhakti emerged, and Muslim religion and teachings of Quran were introduced in the subcontinent. Now another question is, in what ways has the meaning of the term Hindustan changed over the centuries? Over the time, the meaning of the term Hindustan has changed significantly. And in the first case, in the present times, the term Hindustan is understood by the India, the modern nation state. But in the 13th century, writer Minhaj Siraj used the term Hindustan to denote the areas of Punjab, Haryana, and the lands between Ganga and Yamuna. Therefore, the term was used in the political context. In 16th century, Babur used the term Hindustan to describe the geography, the fauna, animals, and the culture of the inhabitants of the subcontinent. And at some other places in the history, the great poet Amir Khusru used the word Hind in a similar context as Babur did. Another question is, how were the affairs of jatis regulated? Two ways in which the affairs of jatis were regulated are as under. Jatis framed their own rules and regulations to manage the conduct of their members. Jati Panchayat or the assembly of elders enforced these regulations. Jatis also followed the rules of their villages. Then another question is, what does the term pan-regional empire mean? During the medieval period, there was enormous diversity among distinctive regions of the subcontinent. Each region had its own geographical dimensions, own languages, and cultural characteristics. These regions were associated with specific ruling dynasty. There was a considerable conflict between these states. Therefore, the empires that ruled or controlled such diverse regions were called the pan-regional empire. For example, dynasty like Cholas, Khiljis, Tughlaqs, Mughals were able to build the pan-regional empire. Then another question is, rather a last question, what are the difficulties historians face in using manuscripts? Historians face many problems while using the manuscripts. Manuscripts are badly written, which is hardly understandable. Sometimes due to lack of understandability of the handwriting, historians are forced to guess what is written. As scribes copied manuscripts, they also introduced small changes which grew over the centuries. Historians have to depend upon the copied version as the original manuscripts are rarely found. Now that's all about this chapter. I hope you might have understood the homework, whatever I have assigned. You should attempt this homework in your copies, and if any difficulty or any doubt or any problem you will be facing, you can contact me through WhatsApp or you can call me. I will be taking up your problems, or rather I will address your problems instantly, and I will remove your doubts whatsoever at the same time. Thank you very much. Stay home, stay safe.